In this tutorial, I'm going to go over some finesse moves for your collage that you can use to make it appear more realistic. And so in this, I'm primarily going to be thinking about reflections and shadows. And so what I have here is I'm first going to want to make a reflection in my fake water here of this shell. And so I need an image of the shell that is the opposite, right? So I have the inside of the shell, I need a photo of the outside. And I have that right here. So I just quickly need to use my quick select tool, brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to select it. And I really only care about the front edge here. And note this image, the shell's also a little bit out of focus, which is fine for this because it's a reflection, which is probably going to be a little bit out of focus anyways. So once I have a selection, I'm going to get rid of the parts that we see the fabric first. And after I do that, when I go to my select and mask option, I'm going to treat this a little bit differently because I am going to want it to be a little bit softer on the edges, so I'm going to feather it more. So instead of a normal kind of feather of 1 pixel, I'm going to go maybe 10 pixels, and so we'll see the difference, especially when I switch to the black and white view. We see the edge is softer compared to 1 pixel. And so once I have that nice soft edge, I'm going to go ahead and then copy and paste this into the new document. I'm going to move this underneath the shell layer. I'm then going to try to position it so we can see a little bit like it'll actually be the reflection. So that looks good. And now I need to go into my layer panel and I need to either change the opacity, which maybe is all I need to do here, or I can also play around with changing the blending modes. And so maybe it depends really on what you're reflecting, whether you do an opacity or a blending mode to make it appear this way. So maybe I'll do a combination. I'll do an overlay, right? And then I'll reduce the opacity just a little bit. So we have a faint reflection of the shell. Next, I'm going to want to create a shadow for Webster here. And to do that, I have a couple of different options. But the one that I like to do is I'll use the quick select tool, get on the plus brush, and I will very quickly select Webster. And there's another way that if you already have a selection on a layer by itself, like Webster is on a layer by himself, so I could right click over the image and say select pixels. Either way is fine. But I have to go to select and mask again. And again, I am going to want to, well, maybe I'll do a smart radius. But the main thing again I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to feather it. So I have a softer edge. And you might even do a couple of different selections where you start out with a softer feather and then you go to a really intense feather. But for right now, I'm going to stick to just one layer. So I have a selection. That's great. Now I need to make a new layer because I'm going to fill this selection using my paint bucket tool. I'm going to fill it black or almost black. All right, so a very dark blue in this case. And then I'm going to get rid of this selection, move the layer underneath Webster, and then I have a little shadow. And I can just move it a little bit. Okay, so I get a soft little shadow, and now I have a more realistic setting because I have shadows and reflections, which of course would happen in the real world.